Hey there, welcome back to a new video where I'm sharing with you our 4-day trip to Stockholm. I'm taking you along for all the sights, food and experiences. From royal palaces and open-air museum to cozy cafes and boat rides, the city had so much to offer, so let's jump right in. The trip started early with a train to the airport. Once we were through security, we grabbed some breakfast before boarding. On the plane, I read Résister by Salomé Saké, a book about the rise of fascism. It's a tough but powerful read. When we landed, we had a bit of time before the bus into the city, so naturally our first Swedish stop was 7-Eleven. If you've never been to Sweden, you might be surprised. 7-Eleven is everywhere here and is actually super handy for snacks and quick bite. Definitely not our last visit of the trip. We made it into Stockholm and checked into Skansen in Fredhemsplan. The room was on the smaller side, but it was sleek and modern with nice shared amenities just outside. Honestly, perfect for a city break where you're mostly out exploring. Our first mission, coffee and pastries. We found a cafe nearby and had our first kanelbullar, Sweden's famous cinnamon bun. The sun was shining, we were sipping coffee, eating pastry. Honestly, the dreamiest start to our trip. To get into the city center, we hopped on the subway. And Stockholm subway is something else. Every station is decorated with murals, sculptures and colorful cave-like walls. It's called the world's longest art gallery and you can actually spend a whole afternoon just station hopping. We took the tram next and headed straight to Skansen. This was at the very top of my list. This is the world's first open-air museum founded in 1891. It's like stepping back in time. Entire old houses, schools, windmills and even factories have been moved here from all across Sweden. There were also people in traditional costumes showing old crafts, glass blowing, baking, tiny leather, etc. You can walk into cottages and just imagine what was life a century ago. We stopped for lunch. I went classic with a hot dog but with a Swedish twist, while my boyfriend went adventurous and tried reindeer, which was actually very good. Then we headed into the zoo section, which is all about Nordic and Arctic animals. Imagine strolling through pine trees and suddenly spotting a lynx or maybe multiple ones. We even saw bison, horses, wolverines, seal, etc. At the end, we even saw a huge moose with his baby, so surreal. Sadly, we missed the wolf and Arctic foxes I was really excited for, but didn't matter. We still spent nearly 5 hours wandering and it never got boring. After so much walking, we needed a break. I'd marked Rose Garden Café on my map, but it was too far, so instead we found Bregan right by the water. Sitting outside with coffee, a pastry, the sun shining, and bulls driving past was exactly what we needed. Refreshed, we strolled along the river toward Nybroviken harbor. The walk was beautiful, so many old colorful boats and views of the water. By dinner time, we reached Gamla Stan, Stockholm's old town. This part of the city feels like a fairy tale with its cobblestone and colorful medieval houses. For dinner, we went all in on Swedish food. First, fermented herring. I'll admit I was nervous, but it was delicious. We tried it 3 ways and I will absolutely eat it again. Then, of course, Swedish meatballs with mashed potatoes. Forget IKEA, this was rich, savory, and utterly comforting. We wandered Gamla Stan afterward, and I even did some souvenir shopping. I think this is the best area for it. To cap the night, we went for Swedish waffles topped with jam and cream. They sometimes serve them with a sweet cheese, but here it was just jam and cream, and I think it was better because tried the sweet cheese at a later time, didn't like it that much. The next morning we were walking around our neighborhood and then we spot Comet Cafe that we went for breakfast. We had coffee, a pain au chocolat and shared a delicious toasty. Then we walked to Stockholm City Hall. You might know it from the Nobel Prize banquet, which is held there every year. The building is a beauty in red brick with golden touches. Even the gift shop was fun, full of things like traditional Dala horses, those little painted wooden horses that are one of Sweden's most recognizable symbols. From there, we made our way back to Gamla Stan to visit the Royal Palace. It's one of the largest palaces still in use in Europe with over 600 rooms. We toured the royal apartments, the Hall of State, the Treasury, and the Museum 3 Crown. We started with the Museum of 3 Crowns, which is dedicated to the original medieval castle that burned down, and you can actually see part of the whole stone walls underground. Then we moved to the royal apartments, which are filled with chandeliers and gilt details. At the end, we even saw the throne. And finally, we went to the treasury, where we saw all of the crown jewels and the royal regalia. To be honest, I was a bit underwhelmed at first, partly because so much of it is closed off since the royal family still lives there. But that's also what makes it fascinating. It's not just history, it's a working palace. Seeing this throne room and imagining ceremonies happening there made it feel alive in a way some palaces don't. Afterward, we grabbed some street food, more herring, this time cooked differently. Cheap, fast, and honestly some of the healthiest fast food you could even find anywhere. Sweden really nails simple but fresh food. From there, we crossed over to Södermalm, a more bohemian island with lots of vintage shops, independent cafes, and a more relaxed vibes. We walked Monteliusvägen, a path along a cliff with stunning views across the city, probably one of the best viewpoints in Stockholm. Walking back down, we noticed a boat that had been turned into a pub. We couldn't resist stopping for a pint. The afternoon sun, sitting by the water with a pier, it was one of those perfect travel moments where you just slow down and take it all in. We eventually headed back to our hotel, but since that neighborhood wasn't the most connected, we had to walk back to Gamla Stan to catch the tube. There was also the option of a ferry, which would have been fun, but the timing didn't work out. Day 3 was all about water. Stockholm is built across 14 islands, but the wider archipelago has about 30,000 of them. But before boarding, we stopped at a bakery for breakfast. I had my one and only smorgasbord of the trip, an open-faced sandwich, which was delicious. Though I had to fend off a very determined seagulls who wanted it more than I did. I really wanted to visit Sandhamn on this trip, which is one of the other islands. But the ferry schedule was tricky on the Sunday, and my boyfriend worried we'd get stuck there, so we booked a cruise to Vaxholm instead. The cruise itself was beautiful. We sat on the top deck watching the islands drift by. Red wooden houses with little docks, pine trees meeting the water, small fishing villages that looked like postcards. But I admit I regretted not visiting an island. The boat ride was still magical though. On the way back, the weather turned, so we headed inside with coffee and watched the rain from the windows. Very cozy, very Swedish. Back in the city, we explored Östermalm. It's more residential and quieter than Gamla Stan or Södermalm, but it was Sunday, which means Candy Day in Sweden. There's a tradition where families buy sweets every weekend. We joined in, filled a bag of candy at 7-Eleven, and felt fun to be part of the tradition. Later, we stopped at Bruno's, a spot famous for Swedish hot dogs, with tons of sausage varieties. It was delicious and very different from the usual hot dog. We ended the day in Café, the more modern shopping area of Stockholm, before heading back to the hotel. On our last day, we went to Pascal for breakfast, another round of amazing pastries and great coffee. Afterward, we explored the Östermalm food market. The building itself is beautiful with brick and glass architectures, and inside are sold with seafood, cheeses, bread and other delicacies. Even if you're not buying, it's worth a look. We're still too full for lunch there, so later we tried Max, Sweden's answer to McDonald's. And honestly, it was really good. Lots of options, including vegan, and it's known as some of the world's most sustainable fast food chains. Finally, unfortunately, it was time to head home, so we took the train this time, which was much quicker than the bus we used on arrival. And that wrapped up our 4 days in Stockholm, a city of water, history and pastries. Between the royal palaces, the viewpoints, the Archipelago and of course the endless kanelbullar, it felt like the trip that mixed everything. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you soon on the next video.